Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio. This is All Access Med School Admissions. Hello again, everybody. I'm your host, Christian Essman, and if this is your first time checking out this podcast, welcome. It's great to have you here. I think you'll find this podcast insightful if you're a pre-med student. We focus on a different medical school in each episode to give you some insight into their curricular structure and their highlights, but probably the most important to you will be the insight into their admissions process. And I want to thank everybody who's been joining me along the way so far. If you're new to the program, you'll see that in most episodes we take listener questions and I pose them to our guests and at the end of the episode. So if you have questions, you can send them to me at allaccess@case.edu. And in the previous episode, I asked for your recommendations of schools that you'd like me to reach out to. I know a lot of people in the admissions community, but I don't know everybody. And so as I'm starting to book new schools, and it's helpful for me to be able to reach out to them and say, hey, my listeners are telling me they want to hear about your school. And so that is always a good, a very helpful thing to put into an email or a phone call to somebody when I'm making an approach to see if they want to come on the show. So, hey, keep those suggestions coming. Keep those listener questions coming. Because it's really helpful as I put together a show and then bring these questions to the guests. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you guys are enjoying it because it's really been a fun project on my end. So I love hearing from listeners, so feel free to pop me an email at allaccess@case.edu. With that, today we're talking about the University of Michigan Medical School, and I'm excited to have them on the program today, in particular our guest, Dr. Stephen Gay, and I will tell you about our guest here in just a few minutes. But before that, I also want to tell you that at the end of the program, we're going to cover listener questions today about non-traditional students and non-traditional applicants. So if you're in that boat, or you think you might be in that boat someday, stick around and listen all the way through, because you're going to hear some great information and very impassioned messaging from Dr. Gay. And then at the end, we're going to answer some questions from some of our non-traditional listeners. So let me tell you a little bit about the University of Michigan. Founded in 1850, the University of Michigan Medical School is located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ann Arbor is about a 45-minute drive west of Detroit and has a population of about 122,000 people. The medical school is part of Michigan Medicine, which is one of the largest academic medical centers in the country, which provides unique opportunities for innovation and collaboration. While the main adult and children's hospitals, specialty centers, and outpatient clinics are located in and around Ann Arbor, Michigan Medicine is affiliated with the VA Ann Arbor Health Care System and a number of hospitals in the region and throughout the state. Michigan Medicine also has many global partnerships that involve education and research through its Global Reach initiative. Michigan Medical School's mission is to transform health through bold and innovative education, discovery, and service. They have a long, distinguished history as a part of the world-renowned University of Michigan, which is, by the way, the #1 U.S. public university in research spending and has many other highly ranked professional schools. Medical students engage with learners from all 9 of U of M's health profession schools through interprofessional education courses, dual degrees, and other co-curricular opportunities. University of Michigan is a public institution and accepts students outside the state of Michigan, which typically make up more than 50% of those who matriculate. While all applicants must be citizens or permanent residents of the United States, applicants with the DACA status are encouraged to apply to the MD program. In 2018, the medical school received 7,533 applications and interviewed 445 applicants for a class size of 168. 65% of their 2018 entering class were comprised of women, 21% self-identified as underrepresented in medicine, and 52% were 2 or more years out of college. Based on AMCAS matriculant data for 2018, 83% of incoming students had community service or volunteer experiences. 82% had physician shadowing or clinical observation experiences. 91% had medical or clinical community service or volunteering experiences. 38% had some type of paid or medical or clinical employment. And 95% had research or lab experience. The mean undergraduate GPA for students accepted to Michigan in 2018 was 3.84, with a range of 3.07 to 4.0. And the mean MCAT for accepted students was an 89th percentile, with a range of the 50th percentile to the 100th percentile. Now, let me tell you about the guest I have today. I am super excited to have Dr. Stephen Gay. He is a busy guy, so I was kind of shocked when I was able to get him booked onto the program. Dr. Stephen Gay is the Associate Professor of Internal Medicine and the Medical Director of Critical Care Support Services and the Assistant Dean for Medical School Admissions at the University of Michigan. He is board certified in pulmonary medicine and critical care. His clinical and research interests include medical education, outcomes and treatments for end-stage lung disease, lung transplantation, interventional bronchoscopy, and the evaluation of unexplained dyspnea. Dr. Gay became involved in the admissions committee when he came to Michigan in 2000, and he was later recruited, which he'll talk about here in a few minutes, to become the assistant dean for admissions, and he's been in that role ever since. So, as I said, I'm grateful for the time he gave us today. You're going to love hearing him. He's very inspirational. By the end of this interview, you're probably going to want to run through a wall. Because it'll get you pumped up. So with that, hey, let's dive right into it here with Dr. Stephen Gay from the University of Michigan Medical School. Hey, Dr. Gay, thank you so much for joining me today on All Access. I really appreciate some of the time you've taken out of your day to join me.
No, pleasure's mine, Christian. Thank you so much.
Hey, well, I've been excited to have you on my lineup to get you on the show. And we just read your bio sketch. You're an incredibly busy guy. So
Life isn't fun if you're not.
Yeah, how do you find this balance between being a busy physician and an admissions dean?
Well, I think balance for everything is difficult. First, you've got to have people around you that you work with, that you can rely on, that can do a fantastic job. I believe I have the best team for admissions in the country, led by Carol Tina, our director of admissions. And
right.
When you've got people around you that are so capable, so competent, and so wonderful to work with, things get done. And that allows me to continue to pursue the things that I'm passionate about. I still love taking care of my patients. As amazing as it is to be a dean of admissions in a medical school, nobody goes to medical school dreaming of being a dean of admissions. I'm a pulmonary critical care doc that loves taking care of patients and loves doing my unique procedures and loves rounding in my ICU and interacting with my colleagues and my patients and their families in these wonderful ways. And so I'm blessed to be, through all the positions that I hold here at the university and at the medical school, just to work with phenomenal people who do their jobs so well that it allows me to continue to pursue the things that I care about and I feel are important to the type of person I'm trying to be.
That's awesome. How did you get involved in admissions? When did this start to kind of become a part of your career now?
So I left my fellowship here at the University of Michigan in 1997 to go back to what was home, Chicago, to serve an area there that was somewhat underserved in the city. And it was wonderful. It was amazing. But about 3 years after I got there, I got a call from my mentor here asking if I would consider coming back because I had developed some really cool skills putting together my own practice and building a lot of programs. And I thought that was wonderful. But knowing I was coming back to the University of Michigan, I realized there were some opportunities to really pursue some things that I also thought were important in medicine. And admissions diversity, finding excellent and talented candidates to teach and learn from and learn with was extremely important to me. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to get involved in. And I joined our admissions committee the same year I got back here on the faculty and loved it. Liked it so much, I really realized I wanted to be a part of the decision-making process and joined our admissions executive committee, which actually makes the decisions of who's admitted. And then a few years later, I got a phone call, and they said that the current dean was leaving to become a chair at a different institution and asking me if I'd be interested.
Wow.
Until that moment, I hadn't ever thought of being a dean of admissions. But I think the challenges and the opportunities were so both specific and wonderful, I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
It took a little balancing for a while to kind of take all these different jobs that I do and get them in the right place. But I've been a part of it ever since, 13 years now, and I've absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. What do you find that you enjoy now most as you reflect back on 13 years of experience in admissions that you really like the most about this job in admissions?
I think it's the amazing people that I get to meet at every level of it.
I agree.
I get amazing collaborations and amazing support from our faculty. And you really get to meet an awful lot of people doing this. I know an incredible number of faculty members. I meet alums from all over the country who are passionate about Michigan and love the place, and with whom it's very important to continue to be active as a part of the institution, which I love. I meet brilliant and talented students through their interviews and through the interactions as they're going through the process of thinking about medicine. But I also get to interact every day with the amazing students that have taken the opportunity to matriculate here. It is extraordinary to see the energy, the passion, and knowing that a field that you love so much in medicine is going to be okay well after you're gone. And so I love the interactions with all the people I get to work for and work with and work on behalf of. It's fantastic.
Yeah. When you're not doing your admissions work and you're not in the hospital, what do you do for fun, man? Like, what are your...
Trust me, this is not my whole life. I've got two amazing sons who are grown now, 27, 25. One of them goes to law school here at Michigan, and the other one is working in East Lansing, and I get to see them a lot. My lovely wife, we play a lot of tennis. We have tremendous friends here in town. Ann Arbor is such an amazing place to live. It's got great culture, great sports, amazing things to see and do. We're constantly doing something in town, whether it's going to see a show or going to the big house and seeing a game or going to a great restaurant or just hanging out with my friends, playing tennis, learning to play golf a little bit. There are a whole bunch of things that keep me busy, and I do like to stay active, so we're always finding something.
Ann Arbor is a great city, and given that it's kind of a big college town in a way, is it kind of weird for you to be out in the community and you're seeing current students or prospective students like restaurants and stuff? It's kind of like a teacher going to the grocery store. You see your teacher like, "Yeah, that's my teacher."
No, it's actually wonderful, and I really enjoy it. Ann Arbor's more in a college town, although it is an amazing place with a brilliant university. There's so much more here and so much to do. Yeah, I see my students and my colleagues everywhere I go. I'm just blessed that I have amazing students and really cool colleagues. So it's always a positive. And I like to see my students out doing things and enjoying themselves and keeping a great balance. I love seeing my colleagues because they're brilliant and interesting and talented, and so it's very nice. No, it isn't like I walk around town and people go, "You're the dean of admissions. Can I ask you an admissions question?" That doesn't happen. But it is really a great joy to be part of a place where you're surrounded by brilliant, interesting, talented, passionate people. It just elevates you. It's a great place to live.
Mm-hmm. What do you find is like something that people are surprised to know about you?
Oh, what are they surprised to know about me? That's really hard to say. They do such a good job with our social media. I sometimes worry that there isn't much.
Too much.
I think more than anything else, maybe it's the fact that despite all of these things that I do, I can still keep balance as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's still things that I'm passionate about and I love to do, and it's important to the type of person I am, and that it takes time and effort to try to keep that balance, but that balance is important for all of us. And
absolutely.
And so, you know, I think people do sometimes say, wow, you must be reading files all day, or wow, you must be in the hospital all day. I do a lot of different things, but I still go home.
Yeah.
I still hang with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I still get to see my sons. I still go to football games and everything else. Just like everybody else in this town, we all work really hard to keep a balance of the work we're passionate about and the lives we're passionate about. And so it may be a little surprising because everybody kind of sees this as the two things I do as both 24/7, 365 positions. No, you have to be very intentional. Surround yourself with people who do their jobs in brilliant ways and at an amazing level.
Mm-hmm.
You got to trust them, but you've got to be a part of your world. And so maybe that may be the most surprising thing, that I'm just not a nerdy person reading files all day long.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, let's just dive right into the curricular piece, the Michigan curriculum. And you guys have an incredible website that really comprehensively breaks down your curriculum. And so what are some of the highlights that so the Michigan curriculum is built on, from what I could tell, is that the year one's the scientific trunk, it's called. Year two is called the clinical trunk, and years 3 and 4 are called the branches. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the highlights about those first couple years that when you're talking with prospective students that you want them to know about? This is what life is like as a student at Michigan in the first couple of years of these trunks, these foundational years.
So I think the best thing to start with is the why.
Yeah.
Why have a curriculum like this? And I think for us, it's important. I think every medical school should know what it's trying to do and what it's trying to be as a part of its society. We at our medical school, as part of our curriculum, want to make leaders and change agents in healthcare. We realize that students these days are coming in with incredible experiences and very varied interests and things that they're already developing passions about that they feel are important. We're blessed here at the University of Michigan to be an extraordinary university that has so many top programs in so many varied fields that we realize that this is the perfect place to collaborate and define for yourself what's going to be important for you to be. Mm-hmm. If you're a physician that wants to be involved in entrepreneurship, if you want to be involved in global health, if you want to be involved in basic science research or in education or a great clinician, you should be able to make those choices and be able to pull from so many other areas to get the support and knowledge that you may not get anywhere else. Mm-hmm. To be able to use the resources of one of the best business schools in the country, or one of the best law schools, or one of the best schools of information, or public health, engineering, so many things. And so our curriculum is designed for that. Our first year of our curriculum is rigorous. The scientific trunk is 14 months learning both normal and abnormal, having clinical patient experiences right away, mm-hmm. Learning how to work in teams, having our leadership curriculum as a part of understanding how to make those teams run and work, and really preparing yourself with the foundation and the understanding of the basic science that will make you a great physician. I'll be honest, we don't teach to the boards. We teach to that knowledge that is both cutting edge and crucial to be a great physician. And so you will hear from some of our most brilliant professors about not only the basics and the building blocks, but where this science can take us, how it's clinically relevant, how to begin and understand where this will be a crucial part of what you know. Mm-hmm. And then right after that, we go into our clinical rotations, the basic clinical rotations that a lot of med schools do in the third year, surgery, medicine, family medicine, obstetrics, all kinds of stuff like that. And you do that for another 12 months. Then our students get time to prepare for the boards, and they take step one on the boards. We think it's very helpful to have had your clinical rotations before that because it puts everything in much greater context, easier. It ceases to be about memorizing a bunch of facts, and it really is about knowing and understanding how cohesively it makes sense to what you do, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier to do extremely well on the boards.
If I could interrupt you really quickly, Dr. Gay, I think it's something I like highlight what you just said is like, we don't teach to the boards. No. And I think pre-meds need to hear that, like to know that, and then I could probably guess your students do well on the boards.
Yeah.
Right? So
they do. Yes, they do exceptionally well. Thank you.
Yeah.
But understand the difference between a good doc and a great doc is going to be what you've seen, what you've experienced, the crucial cutting edge things that if you read in a book, you've got that knowledge, but you don't have that ability necessarily to apply it, synthesize it, and see it when it presents more uniquely. I think our curriculum really lends for the ability to be seeing these cutting edge things all the time, to be seeing some of these patients that docs may only see a couple times in a career, you will see much more frequently. To do more esoteric things like transplant and seeing it on a daily basis, while you're still seeing enormous amounts of the stuff that is crucial to being a doc anywhere, anytime, any day. So not only seeing the things that, quote unquote, we consider common as we take care of patients in our varied fields, but seeing the things that if you've seen it, know it, and understand it once, it sticks with you forever. And so when something enters a differential that may be a part of, you're going to think of it because you know it, understand it, and you've taken care of it. It's the difference between a good doc and a great doc, in my opinion. And having those opportunities in our curriculum in such a robust way, I think genuinely makes the difference between being incredibly confident when you enter your residencies and fellowships and practice, but also gives you the opportunity to continue to work and interact at these brilliant institutions of learning, or taking that knowledge to places that may not have had the opportunity to have a physician of that type of skill, because it's important for you to care in that way and offer that type of knowledge and understanding in other populations in other ways to really make transformative change.
Yeah.
But it also gets down to, and our alums were really integral in this. We see so many of them who have been so successful, not only in medicine, but in business or in research. And constantly they used to tell us, God, only if I had learned a little bit more business when I was in med school, or been exposed to it, or exposed to a little bit more education, think of where I could be. And you're talking to these people who are giants in the field and going, thinking where you could be, but understanding what they're saying. That though the ability to take those additional fields and experiences and make yourself into the type of physician you've dreamed of, the type of physician you want to be because of what you're passionate about, what you've seen. We have that opportunity here. It's in such an easy way, and we have to take advantage of it. We had to take advantage of it. So our students develop these paths of excellence and areas of expertise that they want to continue to pursue for the future, like ethics or entrepreneurship, or basic science education, as I mentioned, but also giving them an opportunity, knowing and understanding as you get into their third and fourth year. When we initially redid the curriculum years ago, and I can't call it a new curriculum anymore, but when we initially redid it, it did seem a little odd to us that the only difference between a pathologist and a neurosurgeon in medical school were 3 to 4 months in their fourth year.
Right. Yeah.
That students are coming in with so many new and in-depth experiences that we needed to take advantage of the fact that probably earlier than a lot of us older folks who became docs, they were beginning to establish a personal and a professional identity that had much more nuance and direction. And so we want to be able to foster that. Now, that doesn't mean that if you don't see something new and you decide, well, I thought I wanted to combine business, but now I want to do global health. Well, you're in med school. It's not hard to change that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But we should be able to allow you to go into greater depth and using the third and fourth year to refine those elite clinical skills and those opportunities and really do deeper dives into the fields that you're interested in clinically, but also do deeper dives into those other portions that will be relevant to their personal and professional practice of medicine.
Can I ask you, when did you mention the paths of excellence? And there were several, either ethics, global health and disparities, health policy, innovation, medical humanities, patient safety, quality improvement, complex systems, scholarly and teaching, learning, and scientific discovery. When do they declare that they want to do this? And if so, when? Is it third, fourth year, or is it earlier?
It's actually earlier.
Okay.
They begin to investigate what they are during their first year. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much that they have to declare then, but they have begun to get in-depth exposure to all of them because we incorporate all of these into the first year curriculum as we are looking at that basic science and clinical information that we need as our initial foundation. Mm-hmm. Should learn the social determinants of health and the impact of certain things and learning the ethics and the socioeconomic concerns related to it. So we begin to expose you in a lot of ways to the basic elements of those paths of excellence as a part of our first year educational curriculum. Mm-hmm. So you can begin to say, yeah, this is what interests me. This is what I think would be important for me to learn more because it's really piquing my interest. So that's where it starts. It continues to develop through the second year, and then you make a more specific declaration.
I see. Okay.
Right after that second year ends, and then you're able to continue with capstone projects and things like that, which are very unique to each individual student. We don't tell you what kind of project you have to have.
Is it kind of a thesis? Is it kind of a diet thesis kind of project?
Well, it can be even more than that. For some students, it may be a prolonged and more significant research project. Mm-hmm. We've had students with interests in the arts and things like that write books of poetry, put on performance stuff that are important and relevant to relaying a message and an understanding of things. It really is up to the student how they wish to pursue and express that type of information that they're getting from their paths of excellence. Yes, a lot of it is research and scholarly work. Wonderful. But it can be much more unique. But we want to give them the opportunity to choose exactly the way they want to do it. For some students, it isn't so much the scholarly production of a paper, but it may be building a program or a project. One of my favorite students a couple of years ago built a outreach program for an underserved population of students to approach them from some of the great high schools in the Detroit area and expose them to medicine, being a student, learning skills, things like that. Their project was to build this program, and this program has flourished, and other students have taken it on after the student left and continued to develop it, make it grow. So it has to be those elements of in many ways how you wish to serve and express yourself. But we are incredibly open to things that are unique and interesting, and it doesn't have to be as rigid or, not to say limiting, but potentially limiting as you have to write a paper, you have to produce a thesis. In some ways, the impact can be the programs or things that you might develop for communities and societies. And I think it all boils down to what you can do here. I mean, I look at how many of my students get another degree while they're here from all these great schools, and I think that begins with the paths of excellence. We used to be really proud of ourselves, how many students in the old curriculum would get a second degree from the School of Public Health or Public Policy or Business or the School of Art and Architecture. And then we said, but did these students choose us because they knew of that opportunity? And what about students who haven't explored it yet? Well, it became very clear as a part of this curriculum we developed, we had to give them greater exposure, so that students who may not have known and understood that well as a possibility could make a decision early, say, hey, no, I actually want to learn, go to the business school, go to the Ross School of Business here in Michigan, top business schools in the country, and really get an MBA in this so I can take this forward. Or to say, I've gotten so much information about how to run a not-for-profit and do some things in global health from our global reach programs that I don't think I need to go to business school to learn those things.
Or maybe not right
either
now.
Way, right. Either way, you should have the option and the understanding and not be doing it because you don't know what's available and what may make you into the physician you wish to be. And so that exposure as a part of our curriculum is extremely important to us.
It sounds like there are a lot of great opportunities. There's things prescribed students have to do in the curriculum, and then there are these other, like the impact curriculum and the leadership piece. What's a typical week like it sounds like are students super busy? Do they have time to have lives outside of class? Like, what's a typical week kind of like for a student once they kind of get immersed into the curriculum?
The answer is yes to both. Our students are busy, but we actually choose our students because of their curiosity in their world and want them to both have and take opportunities to be away from this place and continue to participate in all of those things that they loved that made them attractive folks to the medical school in the first place, whether it's altruism or sports or acting or writing or clubs, things like that. We work very hard to try to make sure our students have the opportunity to continue to be the people that they want to be, that make themselves happiest. And so, yes, our students are busy. They work very hard during that first and second year. But yes, you talk about walking around Ann Arbor, I'll go to places in Ann Arbor and I'll see them volunteering. We have a group called the Galen's Medical Society, which does an enormous amount of outreach for so many different things. I'll see them on the first Friday and Saturday of December doing Galen's Tag Days, which they're out in the streets. They're singing, they're performing, they're gathering money and donations for the charities of the Mott Children's Hospital. We tend to, as the faculty, some of us will drive a van around, and it's a little chilly because it's first week of December, and we give them pizza and give them coffee and talk to them and hang out. It's really beautiful. I see them put on our smoker. There's been a 100-something year old tradition of the students putting on a show to spoof life here at the medical school, but it's always standing room only at one of our big auditoriums here on campus. And it makes tens of thousands of dollars for the charities of the Mott Children's Hospital for Galen's Medical Society.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's always a little scary to see a student playing you on stage. I'll give you that much. A lot of us on the faculty are like, oh, what are they going to do this year? But it's amazing how talented they are, and they write the music and they do all this stuff, and it's a very sophisticated production.
Yeah.
But we want our students to still be involved in those things. You know, work-life balance doesn't come to you instantaneously. So it's not like we can take you in med school and say, we're going to make you do all these things.
I'll be balanced.
All of these things away from you that you loved doing. And then years from now, when you're an attending, grab that work-life balance right back. Work-life balance is something we should work on every day of our lives. And our students should work on it and find the things that they love and are important to them, and find a way to balance their studies and their time with their families and their time with their friends and the things that are important to them to serve and be a part of in order to be the type of people they want to be. And so, yes, they work hard.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were saying here, work hard, play hard. And they do both. And they're incredibly social with each other. I am blessed to see how supportive they are of each other. There's not a lot of individuals here who turn to each other and say, it's either you or me. Quite the opposite. We're Michigan. We support each other. We'll both get exactly what we've dreamed of. And to have a group of students who believe in that culture, that's extraordinary.
As an admissions dean, and we get to see these students at a unique perspective from the first day they're here with maybe a sweaty palm and a handshake. You know, they're nervous and stiff suits and uncomfortable shoes. But then we see them here at our medical schools as students. What type of advice would you give your students that start at Michigan to say, hey, be aware of this when you start here, or just be mindful of this as you start as a medical student at your school? Is there something you just want them to know, just to kind of, hey?
Sure. No two students are the same. Students sometimes, especially if they go through times that are rougher, they want to look around and say, everybody else seems to get it, and I feel like I'm working harder than everybody else. And I'll hear my students sometimes say that, and they say, I went out last night and I saw the people out at the beer garden, and I was like, oh my God, I should be studying, but everybody here is at the beer garden. And I said, you don't think they're looking at you exactly the same way? That's the way it is. When you want to push yourself to be great, you actually feel like everybody else has got it together. And it's actually the opposite. What has made you an amazing candidate for the University of Michigan aren't the similarities of scores and things like that. No, it's the differences. It's the things that you've experienced. It's the things that you've been a part of that you can share with a class, so those individuals in a class can learn from you, understand from you, and become better because of the interactions that they have with you. That's what makes it a great medical school. And when you have that type of opportunity where, yes, the common denominator is all of you that belong here, and all of you in your ways are brilliant and talented and passionate folks. That's the similarity, not a grade, not a score, not your major, not the school you went to, not that you took time off or didn't take time off or anything else like that. That being part of a medical school like this is about the unique attributes of who you are, what you've experienced, and what you can bring to the table. If students know that and embrace that and know that they are welcomed because of it and needed because of it, I think in some ways it changes the pressure you feel. It is always hard for competitive folks, and people who get to med school by definition are internally competitive. They don't necessarily have to feel like they're externally competitive, but they are internally competitive. They are working to be the very best they can be. But when you are internally competitive, sometimes it is difficult not to look at others and say, do I match up? And nothing And that's a comparison that just plain shouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
They're here because of their experiences, which are unique, and their differences, which are outstanding, not because of a group of metrics that seems to be similar.
I think what we're touching on here is imposter syndrome, maybe a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But and it's understandable in our society with all the information you get about everybody around you. Mm-hmm. It's hard to know or feel you measure up. We look at social media, and so much of the things on social media people have taken time to process. So there are these artificial definitions of perfection, whether physical, psychological, emotional, or intellectual. Mm-hmm. You know, our greatest strength is the ability to be a passionate, curious individual that believes in something and looks at their place in their community or society as, if I can just do something better every day than I did yesterday for someone or something or about something, that's a really good day. Yeah. That's a huge part of what I think we look for in our students.
Yeah, I think if students ever feel, once they start medical school, if they feel like, oh my gosh, should I be here? And the answer is absolutely. You don't accidentally get into medical school.
No, exactly. It's not like, I'll be honest, there are a whole lot of people who participate in admissions who have an incredible understanding of their institution, the type of vision and mission of their institution, the type of people that we want to be inspired by to teach. Those same people hopefully will develop into the type of individuals that we can have as colleagues and perform the quest for new knowledge with. And I'll be honest, for many of us in admissions, we do look at you as the possibility of being the people that will care for us when we can no longer care for others the way we have. That's the importance of the whole thing. And that takes unique, talented individuals from a whole host of places who have done a whole host of things to create a class that is stronger than just the individuals in it, that will learn from each other and will become great physicians because of it.
Yeah, I think it's like you just touched on the question of, would I want this person taking care of me or my family or, a parent? And that's how we're looking at people frequently.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly. And so the discussions we have as a committee, the things we look at, at the level of discussing in a committee, it's never about grades and scores. Yeah. It's about trying to understand the passions of the individual, the focus of the individual, the resilience, how they care about those around them, what they're curious about, what could they become and what might they pursue. A lot of it is so aspirational for us that it has to be, it's interesting. My committee truly embraces the thought of, has the student done everything they need to do to get into medical school? Well, everybody who's applied to medical school usually has.
Right.
But if that's all they've done, if they haven't put themselves in positions that may be uncomfortable and become better because of it, if they haven't reached out to build something or change something or do something because it's important to the type of person they wish to be, if they haven't said that this is important for me to do because of the type of person it makes me and that's the type of candidate for medical school it makes me, that they choose majors because they are passionate about what they're learning. It could be theater, it could be math, it could be engineering, it could be economics, it could be any of a whole host of the basic sciences, biology, neuroscience. But they do it because they love the information and they're curious and passionate about it. Those are the type of students that we try to admit to our medical school. Yeah. I use a term that I used with my own kids when they were really young, and I still use it today, that it's We're looking for people in whom it's more important to be a part of this world than simply riding on top of it. And you know those people when you meet them.
Yeah.
We've set up a process to hopefully identify them as best we can, because that is important to who we are at the University of Michigan and what this institution and we as individuals here aspire to do and aspire to be every day.
I think this is a good segue to start, because I think you have people now fired up about Michigan. I think if you're a listener, they're probably fired up. So now they want to know, all right, so now how does someone get into the medical school at Michigan? And so I think now we're kind of getting to those. I've seen on your website, you have a nice list of like the prerequisites and the competencies that you're looking for. And one question I thought about, I think pre-meds probably maybe have in their head, is when they see this list on your website of the prereqs and core competencies, like, what if I don't have all of them?
Nobody has every single one.
Yes, I think
Nobody has every single one of them.
Say that again. Say that again.
No one has every single one of them. There's no such thing as the perfect candidate for medical school. What we are looking for, we understand in building a class that there are things that are equal, although they are distinct. So I'll give you a quick example. Yeah. To us, there is absolutely no difference between a student who gets a 3.85 GPA, scores in the 92nd percentile of the MCAT, who was a 2-year captain of the women's gymnastics team, who did an incredible amount of altruism, but only did research for a semester because there are only so many hours in the day.
Yeah, right.
Versus a person who gets a 3.45, 3.5 GPA, does 20 hours a week of work to help pay for their education because they have to, also finds time to work maybe, 850 hours in a lab and gets a publication or 2 out of it. But because there are only so many hours in the day, maybe they get a summer in of volunteering and altruism, and maybe they participate an hour a week at a soup kitchen. There's absolutely no difference between the incredible value that both of those students will contribute to a class because of their experience, their journey, and the things that they do. To think less, or that's not the case, doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, maybe that's just us here at Michigan, but it doesn't make any sense. We want to know when we see you what you're passionate about. We want to know the things that you've done to make yourself into the type of person you want to be. We want to know what you've experienced in your life that has been transformative for you, to make you understand better the person you are and the directions and the paths you've taken. We are very comfortable knowing our floor. Okay, we know where at a certain level it may be harder to perform in our curriculum. But all of that's in context.
Right.
Understand the qualities of a student who has to do something else 20 to 30 hours a week, like work, and gets a 3.5 GPA. Do you know what that student does when they have to balance their time and work when they're tired, things like that? Yeah. When I bring them to my medical school, and because of financial reasons, I take away their need to work 20 hours a week.
Life could be easier.
They're extraordinary students.
Yeah.
To be expected. So we are looking for people, individuals, once again, who have not checked the boxes. We're looking for people through passion, commitment, resilience, curiosity, have found a path and embraced it, and without any apology whatsoever done the very best that they can. So that's what we look for in an application. Why you are the person you are, why you've made the choices you've made, which is why we've taken away classes from our prerequisites and call them core competencies. For us, it's important to understand this is what you have to know to do well in our curriculum. We're not saying it's somebody else's curriculum, our curriculum. But we also understand in this day and age, you can learn so much of that in other places. Prove to us you have. Make us understand. That's one of the questions on our secondary. Yes, the easiest way to learn a lot of this information is to take the courses. But if you haven't taken the courses, how'd you learn it?
Mm-hmm.
And, I will admit this, though, if you've learned it a different way, we do have to establish certain parameters that will show us you did.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say that you learned your biochemistry through working in a lab and didn't take biochemistry, regretfully, we may have to put a little bit more weight on how you did on the biochemistry portion of the MCAT to prove you knew this biochemistry. We'll also get that information from your letter of recommendation from your lab mentor of what you've learned in terms of your biochemistry and how you've learned it. We'll look for other sources. But when students have learned it well, it's clear they've learned it well.
So are you saying on your secondary, there's a prompt that says, explain to us how you've achieved our competencies?
Yes.
In essence? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a little bit more specific than that.
Okay.
Please explain to us how you've achieved these competencies, if you have achieved them in any way other than taking a course.
Got it.
So you don't have to explain to me, I learned my physics by taking
physics
110.
Yeah. Okay.
Fine, I can see you took physics 110. But if you learned it somewhere else in some other way, show us, tell us, prove it.
When you're talking about this passion and dedication to something, explain to listeners, like, how do you get that from, like, where do you get that from? How do you get them to have that ooze out of the application? Where do you get that information from? Is it the experiences section, personal statements?
It's all of them.
Yeah.
But I think, to put it very simply, it's a difference between telling us the what you did versus telling us why. Mm-hmm. And what you took from that experience and what that experience did for you and made you understand, the type of responsibilities you took during that experience in a very personal way. Yes, for part of it, if it's an experience that I wouldn't just understand what you did right away, many universities have clubs with specific names or organizations that are very important to the lifeblood of the institution, but it'll have a specific name, and I won't be able to glean exactly what it was from that name. Sure, I'll need a little bit of, what's this organization do? What did you do? But I'll need more and a lot of what you got from it. Now, understand something, and I should just say this very clearly. Not every single thing you do in your 15 experiences is going to be transformative, amazing, life-changing, and life-affirming. Part of college is trying new things and realizing, well, this was cool that I did it, but I actually don't have to do it for much longer than I did. And you're comfortable with that. That's fine. But one, not everything should be that way. Yep. Part of the exploration should be that you are finding things that you are passionate about, finding things that you begin to have long-term relationships doing and being a part of: research, sports, acting, writing, performing, altruism, because of the type of person it makes you. And thus you have a longer-term commitment toward it. But that's what college is all about. Yeah. I mean, that's what's so amazing about going to college in the first place. It is a brilliant, safe place to explore. And so we are looking for that curiosity, and that curiosity comes out in that. A student that only takes 100 and 200 level courses to get their GPA perfect,
they sniff that out. Yeah.
You can see that right away.
Yep.
It doesn't look good. If all you were trying to do is be the best candidate for medical school, regretfully, if that is your goal and the primary reason for all the decisions you made in college, you're actually not a very appealing candidate to us.
I think a take-home message might be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but those 15 experiences that are in the application, they don't have to be, I don't say perfect, but it's okay to say that you tried something out, just kind of like what you were saying, but it was great, good experience. But I found my passion in this other area where I'm doing choosing it as my most meaningful.
Exactly.
And then giving us not just the facts, but the insight and introspection that this is why I dove into it.
Very well said, Christian. I agree completely.
Oh, man. So I was fortunate enough to be able to sit in one of your presentations at the AMA curriculum meeting a couple months ago, and where you talked about your screening process. Is there something you'd like people to know about how the screening process works at Michigan? We're not doing your 45-hour minute, because it was brilliant. It was a great talk.
Well, thank you. But
it was very elaborate. It was very elaborate.
Thank you. I think the key to it is that we are screening for qualities and competencies, and not screening for a certain amount of hours doing something, or kind of check boxes of they've covered everything. It gets back to what I said about the uniqueness of those two students I described.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for areas in which you are developing an identity and a maturity and a passion and a commitment that would benefit those around you in their interactions with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do screen for things like how you express your altruism, how you express your curiosity, how you express your commitment to certain things. And yes, can you do our work? But like I said, doing the work is a floor and not a ceiling, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I need to know and try to pick students, and we work very hard in whom they will thrive in medical school and not just survive it. And so we need to know that you can do a certain level of work, sure, but we need to know the context in which you've done everything and the things that you have found important to you. So that's what our screeners initially do for us. They read an application looking to see if they are reading about a person with insight, with the ability to self-reflect, with an understanding of self, with an understanding of what's important to them in being a part of their world, and how they've been able to begin to form that identity based on things like their altruism, based on things like their journey, based on things, what they've been through and overcome, based on how they've shown their curiosity and potentially built something from that curiosity. Mm-hmm. Those are the things we screen for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're the place, and trust me, I don't think we're alone in this at all. Mm-hmm. That you're right. There are an awful lot of people with perfect scores and perfect MCAT percentiles that didn't do much else. Those students have no interest to us at our medical school because perhaps may sound a bit strange. I think really good students should get really good grades when they don't do anything but study. Okay?
Right.
The hardest thing in the world is to do things to put your grades at risk and still get really good grades. To be the person you want to be and find the activities you're passionate about and still do really well in school. Mm-hmm. That's a challenge. And students who can find that balance, they're exceptional, they're extraordinary, and it comes out in reading the why of certain things and not just the what they've done. The way they make their personal statement truly personal about what has been transformative for them, that it's not just a rehash of all the things on their CV and I did all these things and all these things are really important to being a doc and thus I should be a doc, so please make me a doc. Yeah, I get it. I read that's your application.
Yeah.
But what is it that's been important to you in developing the identity of who you are, and why is that person a person who wishes to take this extraordinary journey into medicine and become a physician? Mm-hmm. That's a personal thing. When I read a personal statement, I'm trying to connect with you. I'm trying to understand the person you are. And when I'm rereading your CV, I'm not connected. Mm-hmm. When I see the reason you've made choices and what you've learned from those choices, or what you've had to get through to get to the point you are, that's something that resonates. That's something that makes me say, I really want to meet this person because they seem to be a person of maturity, who's interesting and has a great deal of depth and substance. That's what our screeners look for.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a great great next step now in the process is, so I'm an applicant and I've made it through your screening process and I've been invited to interview at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
Let's talk about the interview day there. What can I expect when I arrive on campus? Kind of walk us through the 24 hours of blue at Michigan.
So it starts the night before when you get in. If you can get in time, we buy you dinner. We like our students and our applicants to be able to sit down in an informal setting to meet each other so they can get a bit of a glimpse about probably what's our best and strongest attribute, and that's our other students. We want them to see if they can find people that they can learn with and learn from. And so we send them to dinner. It's just pizza, but it's at one of the restaurants in town, and they get a chance to sit and relax and regroup. And as part of that, we'll give you kind of a walking tour of campus real quick. And then the next day, they're good. So when they arrive at about 7:30 at the Office of Admissions, we all sit down, and there are usually about either 24 or 36 applicants there, and we do it on Fridays. And they get a presentation from Carol Tiener about what the day is going to be like, and they get a talk from a colleague and previous student of mine who's now a faculty member here, Dr. Okamami, who speaks to them about our Office of Health, Equity, and Inclusion and diversity of the institution and the impact that the health system has on so many different communities, not only in our state, but in our region and throughout the country. And then I give them a bit of a talk about who we are as Michigan and what we are looking for in students.
So they get to meet you on the interview day.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's important. That's great. And
trust me, that's like a great part of my job. Yeah. So
you don't want to miss those.
Yeah, exactly. So we chat about that for a little while, and then they go into their interview day, and they have 2 hours of interviews. They have an hour, a 30-minute break, and then another hour. The students are divided in half randomly. I think we call them Group 1 and Group A. That way, So
I was in Group 2. Am I bad?
One and A. And so half of them go to do 2 30-minute interviews individually with alums, faculty members, students, folks from our community, because they all have a very important but very unique perspective of what it means to be a part of this institution, both now and in the future. And that's a chance for them to connect, for them to ask questions that they wish to ask, to get greater information about us. And then after those 2 interviews, they get an hour break. At the same time, another group is going through what we call our short form interviews, which are somewhat similar to the MMI, but there are only 6 of them here. And we are looking at very specific characteristics, not a whole host of characteristics. All of them, of course, will deal with communication, but we look at teamwork, we look at leadership, we look at ethical thought, things that are very important to the culture and the type of physicians we're trying to develop here in Michigan as leaders and change agents in healthcare. So while each of them are doing that hour, you get a half an hour break after that, and then the 2 groups switch and go to the time. After that, it's about 11:30, 12 o'clock. It's lunchtime, and they have lunch with with a large group of our students, because you rapidly find out, as I tell them that morning, you'll see a whole bunch of students here. We're not forcing them to be here. They're here because there's lunch, because one of the things that is most important to students is lunch. But they're actually there as well to begin to meet who may be their colleagues that they will learn with and learn from in the future, and to discuss their experiences in life here. And I am very candid. They're going to call it the way they see it. No place is perfect. There are things that our students feel very important should change, and we are blessed because students are at every level of decision making at this institution, and so they sit on every committee except the one that decides who's promoted to full professor. But every other one, and their input is important. There are stakeholders, and so I emphasize that these students, when they talk about changing things, these things that they want to change aren't just, gee, I wish they would change. In a lot of the cases, they're working on changing them. That students who sit on my admissions executive committee, that sit on our curriculum committee, that sit on the honor council, that sit on the competency committee are not students on the committee. They're committee members who happen to be students. And to me, there's a very significant difference of what that means. Mm-hmm. But there are students from all parts of this place who participate in groups and clubs, things like that, and all of them will be there at lunch talking to you.
Yeah.
There's a student panel, but a lot of it's just mingling and talking. Then our students go through what our director decided, and I believe is probably one of the most important portions of our visit here. They go through our untour, and we call it an untour because, well, tours are boring. You give somebody a tour, they see classrooms and all that stuff. Yeah, great. You don't show it to them, they don't like it. You show it to them, they're bored because they just saw classrooms and stuff. For us, it's actually more important for them to see who's going to be teaching them how they're going to learn. So we have faculty members who teach them things like, my colleague in interventional bronchoscopy here teaches them how to bronch in our sim center.
Cool.
They may go to the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology and learn how to deliver a baby. They may learn how to run to arrest, learn how to intubate folks, learn how to cast folks, learn how to suture from Mark Oringer, one of the finest thoracic surgeons in the world. Mm-hmm. But we want them to be exposed to the people who are going to be important to them, our faculty, so they can begin to see how they interact. And I think that's a really important thing. Our faculty do this voluntarily. They love it. I was going
to say, it's great buy-in.
Oh,
it's amazing.
I'm blessed that that's the culture of who we are.
Yeah.
And then by that time, it's about 2:30. We give them dessert, let them mingle with a lot more students who come by because there's students here and dessert. And usually by 3:30, everybody's on their way. I mean, it's always Fridays. So in a lot of cases, a lot of students stay over the weekend. And
that's great.
Because they have friends here and stuff, and they may go to a football game or a basketball game or hang out and see who's performing at Hill Auditorium, stuff like that. But that's what it is. Many of our students, we try to help our students out with a place to stay. So many of the students who visit actually stay with other students. We have a program for that will allow you to, and our students are incredibly gracious and they love it, to allow people into their homes and apartments and stuff to have people stay overnight. Some people stay in hotels, but that's our 24 hours. And we just want to, I think for us, it's important for them to understand that this is about getting to know them, to see if we can do together what we both want, and that's to make you the best physician in the world. But we need to know that we can walk that journey together. And so we're trying to get to know you, and hopefully you're getting to know us and our culture and seeing if there's a good fit for you.
Yeah.
So that's our day.
It sounds like a really big day. What kind of general tips do you have for people that are invited to come interview at your school? What would be some things if you could say, hey man, just keep this in mind when you're coming here?
One, we like you already. That's why we brought you.
Bingo.
So we're not trying to fool you. We're not trying to put you through something that should upset you or hurt you. We're trying to get to know you. Nobody's trying to fool you in any way, shape, or form. Second, be yourself. We are trying to get to know you. It's not about comparing you to anybody else in that room. We're trying to make a choice to admit you or not admit you based on our connection. So be yourself. Understand you will have opinions and thoughts, and that's cool. Someone who walks into every room trying to say the things that they think I want to hear, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's the person who you welcome somebody into your office and say, hey, would you like a drink of water? And they go, why would you like me to want a drink of water? Be yourself. I'm interested in what you're interested in. I'm trying to get to know you. And that's a very, very important part of the process for us. So, understand, we're not going to be judging you on how much your suit cost. This is a financially difficult thing. We're professional, but we also understand we're completely comfortable if you don't have an $800 suit on. Dress professionally, dress neat, dress the way you can afford, and be yourself. But understand this is a professional arena, and thus we want to see you and meet you in a very professional way. We're going to put our best foot forward. Simply put your best foot forward, but don't think that that's a $850 suit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good point. That's a good point.
You know, your shoes can be old. Shine your shoes. I got lots of old shoes. And so, you know, that's it. But we are trying to connect with you, what's important to you, what you're passionate about. So be prepared to answer those questions. A difficult question should not be, why do you want to be a doc? Even though, we're not necessarily going to ask that.
Right.
But in a strange way, that shouldn't be just because you want to help people. That may be part of it. But understand, there are a whole lot of professions where you can help people in a lot more in-depth way, by being a teacher, by being a social worker, things like that. Why medicine? Why here? What it is about this place and who you are that this may be the best place for us to do this together? Because that's what we're trying to find out. And you should ask questions of everybody you see and meet, because we're here to make sure that you're getting as good a picture as possible so you can make the best decision for yourself as possible.
Yeah. So do you okay, if I'm not accepted out of the gate and I'm placed in the wait list, is there any hope for me?
There is always hope.
Okay.
There's always hope. I will be honest, we've been blessed not to have to go heavily to our wait list ever. But if we don't think you have a possibility, we do let you know right away.
Okay.
And so when we do put students on the wait list, it's because if we have the opportunity to go to the wait list, we want to take a look at you again. We want the opportunity to consider you. But yeah, we say no, we'll say no right away.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. You don't want to dangle people out there,
right?
And keep them, you want them to be able to move on with their life if that's not a possibility.
Exactly. But they should be shopping broadly always.
Yes.
Looking at a lot of different programs helps you to know what's important for you at a place, not just because you saw it at that place, but maybe because you saw it in such a distinguishing way, you saw it lacking so profoundly that it makes you realize how important that factor is, so you can look at the other programs and rank them appropriately. It's important to try to be broad and look at a whole host of places for a whole variety of reasons.
It's a great point. Great point. So when you get to the admissions committee process, and you mentioned earlier that you have an executive committee, that's the group that makes the decisions. Can you just, as much as you can, kind of walk us through what that kind of looks like from your perspective?
Sure. Our admissions executive committee is a brilliant and talented group of folks. They're some of the leaders at this institution. They're some of the leaders from our community. We have alums on it. We have 4 students on it. And they holistically review every application.
Okay, so they're this kind of the screener. Oh, they're reviewing the applicants.
So the 2 admissions committee folks who interview for 30 minutes also review your entire application, and they submit their opinions. But the admissions executive reviews every bit of material from the beginning of end to the whole thing. Every letter, everything. They read the application from beginning to end, and they give you a desirability ranking. Do we want this person because of what we can do with them? Are they a good candidate, but we think they may be a better candidate elsewhere to get what they want to become and what they want to do? Or do they simply not fit into who we are, what we're trying to be, our culture, and thus we're not going to admit them? And so the committee members review them, and we present them in committee, and we discuss the students. We rarely, if ever, talk about grades and scores. If we've interviewed you, we're comfortable with your grades and scores and your ability to do the work. We are looking to discuss those characteristics that you're passionate about, and what you'll bring to a class, and what your strengths may be, and we all have weaknesses, and what that weakness is, and how we would do well to support it, and how You may be fine because of it. And what we can do to get together to make you the physician you dreamed of. And if the committee feels that, yes, this is the type of person we should admit to be a part of our community and a part of our culture to do that, then we admit you. Mm-hmm. That's what it means. It's very personal. We are not comparing you to any other student that we are reviewing that day. Each review is based on exactly that. Can we both make this into a wonderful, talented, transformative physician that will do the things that we are hopeful as a part of our mission as a medical school to lead and to make change? You know, we want change agents, but it's not for us to tell you what you should be changing. It's for you to determine where you want to have your impact. We want to try to see if we can find some things where we can contribute to you a knowledge base and a skill set that will allow you to do that. And so, you know, understand, we're blessed here. Of the students we interview here, over 99% are admitted to medical school somewhere. So, you know, they're all going to be good docs, but we are actually, I think selfish is the right word, trying to look for that group of students in which we feel we can best serve them.
Yeah. This has been great. I think we've touched on, you know, you've been giving us an outstanding overview and those highlights of the curriculum and what you're really looking for in your candidates and the screening process. And now touched on what the interview day and what your admissions committee process is like. Is there anything, Dr. Gay, that you feel like we haven't kind of touched our foot on at this point, that before we kind of segue into answering some of those listener questions, is there anything you like left you want to leave us with about Michigan?
Well, there's something I want to leave you with, not necessarily about Michigan.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe about the process itself.
Absolutely. Hit it.
Every person who's considering medical school will get a million different opinions from a million different folks who they may have gone to medical school 30 years ago. They may have thought about going to medical school and didn't. They may know what they think takes to be a doc. I'll be honest, the people that students will come in contact most who really know it and understand it are their pre-med or pre-health or pre-professional advisors where they are. We actually work to have those advisors from a whole host of schools come to us, hear my committee and I talk about the process, what we were looking for, what we were trying to be, and we let them sit in on a meeting to listen and understand how we make decisions so they are better informed of the process.
Yeah, that's great.
All your friends will say they know. Oh, you got to take so many hours of research.
Oh my gosh, I hate hearing that.
No, don't know. Everybody has their own opinion, and that's cool. Your pre-med advisors know, and they will know by reading your application what its strengths and weaknesses are and what schools may be a good fit for you. And it's okay to listen to your friends, but I find it always amusing. The person that's saying, oh, you got to do a ton of basic science research to get into Michigan, is the person who didn't do basic science research and is pressing send on their application as they're telling you this to discourage you not to go.
I always want to ask them, like, well, ask them what admissions committee they're on.
Exactly. They're
probably not on one.
You know, when you know, we're not trying to hide anything. There's no secret way of getting in. We don't have these underground things. Most of us, to make sure we get the students who will resonate here and do well here, will be very open on all the information that we produce, telling you what we want and need. Yeah. That's because that's what we want.
It's not a game.
Exactly.
We're not here to trick you.
We're trying to be successful, and we're not trying to fool anybody or sneak anything in. We want you to be as prepared as possible if we're the place that interests you.
Yeah, that's a great way to wrap that up. That's outstanding. Thank you for that. Well, hey, you ready to tackle some listener questions?
Sure, no problem at all.
All right. Well, today's topic, we're going to be talking about, these are questions that I've compiled from listeners who are non-traditional applicants. And so I'll start off here reading you one, and we'll see let's see where we can go with these, because some of them, because they're non-traditional applicants, they can be a little more complex. So
Sure.
here's a question for you, Dr. Gay, from Dorian, who is at the University of Holy Cross in New Orleans, and he says he's working on his science requirements there. Dorian says, I'm 34 years old. I got my undergrad, was a music major, and I'm a career changer. What, if any, are the differences between how an admissions committee evaluates a traditional undergraduate applicant versus someone like me who is older and works full-time in a non-medical field? I can't figure out how to handle the extracurricular or experience-based requirements that many medical schools expect from their applicants because I can't change jobs or afford a $3,000 medical mission trip or spend weeks shadowing a physician every day. He says, help.
So I'll be honest, there is no difference for us. And it's because we are trying to interpret your journey and what's been important to you. We completely understand that individuals may experience things in their life that make it clear to them that they have to take another path. That's how we would probably judge you as a non-traditional applicant. What are the things that you've experienced that have taken someone who has probably been very successful in one place to want to change and take a chance? Now, you're right. $3,000 missing trips don't impress us. Not that big a deal. But understand, it gets back to what I spoke about, the type of person you want to be. No, you may not be able to shadow for weeks and months on end, but in a person in whom service is important to them and they see themselves serving in medicine, they will find a way, or a couple hours a week, to find a population to serve. They will have had experiences that will have begun to change their perspective of why they've chosen medicine. And when someone does that, they will begin to pursue those interests. So no, they may not be able to do full-time research, but they may begin to find a way to satisfy their intellectual curiosity and to foster it and allow it to grow. I think that with those life experiences, someone should be able to put together a very rich narrative of why I have changed, what has influenced me to change, and the experiences that I have had and are continuing to attempt to develop that are satisfying that need for me to pursue medicine. This can't be just, I was walking down the street one day and said it'd be really cool to be a doc, so I'm going to apply. Nobody actually ever buys a car off the internet without test driving it first. You wouldn't enter a change in field in such a way with that lack of information. You have probably experienced things, done things, and are working to experience things and do things that are continuing to satisfy your curiosity about the potential in such a field. And it's important to emphasize both why the change and what has influenced that change for you.
I always feel like when we see non-traditional applicants like this, that they're making incredible sacrifices.
Exactly.
They're really pushing all their chips in,
Indeed.
Especially those that are taking courses probably at night, several nights a week for a couple years. I mean, that's really admirable. And that this is not just probably a flash in the pan idea. You don't go down this road, and just on a whim to apply to medical school like this. So I think that Dorian sounds like he's on the right track, and he's just putting a little too much pressure on himself based on what he's been hearing from some people, maybe.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. How about here's a question from Jason. From the University of Utah. He says, I'm a non-traditional applicant and have been out of school for 8 years. Can you give me some pointers on how to approach my personal statement? I'm feeling overwhelmed because I feel like I could write for days. And I think you may have kind of touched on this a little bit earlier when you talked about personal statements a little bit.
So if you're rehashing your CV, yes, you can probably write for days.
It sounds like he's thinking that.
Exactly. But if you're telling me about those things that have been transformative for you, that have made you into the type of person that you wish to be and the type of person that would both benefit our field of medicine and feel driven to pursue it. Those types of transformational things do not come in bunches. We are blessed if we can experience one or two every few years. Touching on those things, it's important to understand that you don't have to tell us everything in a personal statement. That what we are trying to do is connect with you, see your insight, and begin to get an understanding of what has been important in your journey to make you passionate about the potential of being a physician and to see why you're willing to make the sacrifice to become one. That narrative does not have to be long. We'll get a chance to discuss a whole host of other things you've done when we interview you. Take that moment to be very personal on what is important to the type of person you have wanted to be and are becoming, and potentially why, through that understanding of that moment and one or two others, that you have found that medicine is the right place for you to be. So in doing that, you are writing about the things that have truly been transformative. If you've had 100 transformative interactions, well, I'm jealous, but I also may be a little bit suspect. I think the things that truly make us the people we are, there aren't many. And if you address those, if they've occurred in those 8 years, then you've done well for yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, let's hit you with another one. Here's a question from Elizabeth from Nova Southeastern University. That's down in Florida. She says, I was a science major in undergrad, but medical school wasn't necessarily in my career plans until about my senior year, which is why some of my early prereqs were C's. I got mostly A's in my junior and senior year science classes. Do you think I should retake some of my prereq courses because I got those C's?
I can give you the opinion of my institution, how we look at it, and that's no.
Yeah. Okay.
We are very satisfied. We will be satisfied with the upward trajectory. If you feel that for some reason you need to show your academic competence further, then actually take something of more rigor. Go into a master's program, something like that, where you can show that although the basic information before may have been C's, now that you're dealing with much more sophisticated in-depth information and you're getting A's and B's, we'll be very comfortable with that evolution. Just like anything else, you should do better if you retake something. So I don't think it's as impressive. Showing that you've grown and incorporated that material and become a better student and thus can do even better on harder material probably resonates. It definitely resonates more for us. I think probably resonates more for others as well.
I think it's important that you said that, because I think there are sometimes undergraduates feel like if they don't get straight A's their freshman year, all is lost to go to medical school. And that's when their friends start chirping in their ear and the admissions committees that they're not on, saying,
exactly,
you're never going to get it. So that we see this, we want to see that increase in trend, like you mentioned.
I think the only guarantee of not getting in is not applying.
Yeah, no kidding.
I guarantee you, if you don't apply, you're not getting in. So, hey, if you feel you're unique and can do the work and have proven that with an upward trajectory and many other ways you can do the work, please allow us to judge that.
All right. We have two more for you. This one's from Krishna. She's from the University of California, Berkeley. And Krishna says, I'm a non-traditional applicant and I've been working at a well-known social media company. Is it okay to include letters of recommendation from my superiors? What about a client? I had a client offer to write me a letter too.
So I think a big part of letters of recommendation is the hope that the individuals who write the letters of recommendation will have some understanding of you personally, but also may be able to touch upon many of the things that may be important for us in medicine. Now, as I kind of spoke to before, there are an awful lot of competencies such as altruism, curiosity, resilience, reliability, leadership that I think can be touched on by anyone who knows you well. And so, yes, a supervisor or a superior should be very good at addressing some of those things. But you are also going to want to get letters from people who understand some of those things that are more specific to medicine.
Mm-hmm.
The way you actually potentially care for an individual as you might do at a soup kitchen, at a hospice, at a homeless shelter, where we are very much mimicking the emotional and psychological care that we give to our patients every day. You're going to want others to address those more specific things as well, addressing your curiosity, addressing your capability and competence in many ways in the sciences, because we are essentially in a science-based field. Now, I know certain schools want specific letters from specific types of people. We don't do that here at Michigan. We think anyone who can speak to these attributes is a very good start. But we are looking for people to address those attributes to some granularity. Yes. And so a client, depending on how much time you spent with that client, may not be as strong.
Yeah.
But someone who has had to supervise you, mentor you, teach you the position, has the opportunity to see how you thrive in various situations that come up in the workplace, may be a very good person to write you a letter. Yes.
When Krishna asked about having a client write a letter, it reminded me this year I read probably the most powerful and touching letter of recommendation. It came from a young man who he would go to somebody's house, an elderly couple, to help care for the husband who needed some extra help throughout the day. And together, the husband and wife wrote this incredibly compelling letter about how wonderful this young man was and how selfless he was. And for a 23-year-old guy to do that, it was really it was
exactly.
Yeah, that's
a long-term, intimate relationship and commitment that speaks at great depth and great understanding of the personal qualities and characteristics of that individual.
Yep.
If you can have some type of client go to that level, well, then you're fine.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, one more here for you. This comes from Scott, who's from Hamilton College. And he said, if I should be so fortunate to get into medical school next year, as a non-traditional student, he's 33 years old, do you have any advice for unique challenges I might face as a medical student?
Yeah, that's a great question. We could speak all day about that.
Yeah, I bet.
Touch on some of them. First and foremost, in some cases in that situation, you may have been out of the rigorous academic realm for a while, and you'll have other sophisticated responsibilities. You may be old enough to have long-standing relationships or a family to care for, or parents to care for, or other responsibilities as well that will always impact on the time on task you will have to be a physician. Understand that actually isn't too old to go to med school, first of all. Two, that it's important to find a supportive community who understands that, not only of a faculty and a medical school who understands those unique challenges, but also fellow students and colleagues who can support you as well. I mean, we're blessed here at Michigan, and I think one of the reasons is how amazing it is to live and bring up a family in Ann Arbor. You have an awful lot of students who have young families.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because, you can send your kids to a great public school and still only be 5 minutes away from the med school. And housing's affordable, and there are a million things to do in the community, and it's a beautiful, safe, fun place. Great place to bring up kids. And so we see an awful lot of folks who have families. And one of the most important portions of that is the support that's available for those families. We actually had one of my dear faculty members in obstetrics gynecology, Deb Berman. She and a group of faculty started a Moms in Medicine and Medical School group.
Oh, cool.
Where they bring together many of my students who are parents and are a really supportive cohort of the things you need emotionally, psychologically, but even physically. Where's a good place for daycare? Where can I do this? Where can I do that? Do you know of somebody who can help us watch my kids when I have to do this? All of those things.
Yeah.
Because they realize the challenges that they have, even as faculty members, and understand the challenges that many of our students have. And they want to make sure there's a community of support to be there for them. I think that's, as an older student, you were looking for supportive communities. Any student is looking for supportive communities for them, their interests, their passions, and the challenges that they may have, regardless of what they are. Whether or not they are first generation to go to school or may have socioeconomic challenges from their history and from their family, whether or not they're from far away and it's hard to get home on the holidays.
Sure. Yeah.
You want to know that there is a community and there are groups of people who understand that and want to be supportive because of it. And I think it's enormous. It speaks to the character of an institution of which we at Michigan are truly blessed, of people that care enough to say, I understand the challenges of your life. I've been there. Let me help now that I'm farther along and I have resources. Hey, come on over, have dinner. We're going to help you out with this. That's an important thing. And I think as an older student, you have to look for that as well. You know, you don't want to feel like you're the only older student in a community and thus don't have a community, a more personal community that will support you. You want to look around and see, and the easiest way to do that is to ask.
Yeah.
What kind of, tell me the range of your students here.
Yeah.
Do you have resources for your students who are from farther away or who are older, who have been out for a while and are coming back? What do you do to help their transition? The medical school that's concerned about you and your wellness and your well-being should be able to say, yeah, of course. In fact, I can introduce you to some of our older students.
Put you in touch with those people. Yeah, absolutely.
Walk over because they're having dessert in the middle of my lobby and begin to connect you. I think it's important to look for those things, but it's important to ask about them.
Yeah.
And it should not be a detriment to ask about them. If you're at a place where it's a detriment to ask that question, I'll be perfectly honest, you don't want to be there.
Yeah. Well, before we kind of wind things down here, Dr. Gay, are there any, I always like to ask my guests, are there any recommendations, books, podcasts, films, blogs that you enjoy, that you recommend to people, whether they're medically related or not?
I think the biggest recommendation that I can make doesn't have to do with books or blogs or things like that. All of you folks listening to this are a part of academic communities. And it's important to find mentorship and guidance from people who are willing to understand you and who are willing to assist with your journey, taking advantage of your pre-med advisors, taking advantage of research faculty, taking advantage of interactions you may have for altruism and caregiving, where people can give you guidance and assistance in developing, to an even greater extent, your personal and potentially your professional identity. Build those relationships, have those conversations, meet those people face to face. Because I have always found that although there are a bunch of blogs and stuff like that, it's rare that they are personal. Kristen, I really like what you've done here with this, because I think it reaches out with information that, when taken correctly by your listeners, allows them to know the questions to ask and where to begin to investigate, and understand. That's what it should do. No blog should ever say, do this is the way to do it. That's not the way medical school works, and that's not the way the candidacy and the process for getting into medical school works. There is no one specific path that is completely reproducible for every single student.
Yeah.
Those of us that hopefully do it to the best of our ability, it is a very personal process for each of our students, and it's a very personal process for us as we are trying to look at the lives that we want to be a part of. And so searching for people that can help you begin to understand what you need for that and how to develop it and how to refine it, those are the interactions that you want to try to find. Finding mentorship is hard. It takes knocking on doors, and in many cases, you can get a whole bunch of mentors who deal with different facets of different things. No one person is kind of an uber mentor and can handle everything. Take from all these brilliant and talented people you've learned from and develop your identity. But participate in the process in that way. Ask every question you can. Really try to find people who care for you enough that they're willing to walk these roads with you to be a part of you being the best person you can be.
It's outstanding, man. I want to thank you for coming on today, Dr. Gay. I think this has been tremendously informative, optimistic, positive. I hope that the listeners are right now ready to run through a wall and take this, get after this application process and know that it's possible. I mean, you, like you said, if you don't apply, you'll never get it.
That's true. Yep.
So we have really covered a lot of ground, and your insight has been just spot on. And I hope that people have really let this absorb in there, because I think if you really listen to this closely, you're going to get a lot of helpful information that's going to help guide you along through all parts of this process. So thanks again, Dr. Gay. I really appreciate your time today.
Hey, Christian, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this. I've had a heck of a lot of fun talking to you.
It's been a blast, man. All right. Hey, I'll see you around.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Yes, that was a good hang, man. Dr. Gay is a lot of fun, and I can't thank that guy enough. So, hey, thanks for hanging out with us. We got to bring you inside yet another admissions dean's mind, and we've got more coming your way. So stay tuned. Probably get another one out to you next week about Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. So, hey, until then, see you next time, everybody.